Welcome to the Esau McCauley podcast. I'm your host, Esau McCauley. On this episode, we actually have a member of the Holy Post team. We have Kaitlyn Schiess. I get that right?
Schiess. Yeah, that's close.
Chess. That's what I think. It's like chess. Yes.
It's like chess.
I get nervous every time. I got name panic already. A coworker, Kaitlyn Schiess, is here with me today, and another coworker who's actually right around the corner from me, Emily McGowin, who's also a professor of theology at Wheaton. Thank you both for coming on the podcast, even though you had to because you're my friends.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
So this is a Halloween-themed episode, and we are going to do some real questions about theology and Halloween in a minute. But before we did that, I thought we'd do some stuff that the people really wanted to know. So we're going to have a candy draft. This is going to be a Halloween candy draft. And we're going to judge it. There's going to be 5 rounds, and it's going to be a snake draft. And so we're going to you'll each get to make your selection. And then at the end, Mike's going to tell us the reviews of like how it goes. And then we're going to post this on the internet. And the people of the world are going to judge you on your candy drafting skills. So it's a snake draft. It'll go 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. It'll be okay if you get confused. Don't worry about it. Mike will tell you when it is your turn to draft. Okay. We did this in alphabetical order. So Emily is going to draft first. I am going to draft second. Kaitlyn, you will draft third.
Okay.
Kaitlyn, all you need to know for a snake draft is each time you actually draft twice. It may seem like you don't get to, you'll get 5, but you'll be third, and then in the second round, you'll be first. So you'll draft twice, okay?
Okay.
So Emily, you have, in round 1, you have the first pick of the candy draft for Halloween. Any candies on the board, no pressure. What are you drafting?
I have to go with Skittles.
What? You already lost.
They're just my favorite. I'm sorry. They just are.
Skittles is a controversial number 1 pick. Basically, I have the entire board. I was thinking if she went M&Ms, how was I going to pivot? So I would say number 1, and for the purposes of this draft, I am not lactose intolerant, which means I can have milk chocolate. So for the purpose of this draft, I have no allergies. I think the number 1 pick, oh man, I think I'm going to go Kit Kat. I'm going Kit Kat.
Wow, these are wild.
Okay.
I was really expecting I wouldn't get to do my number 1, which would be the pumpkin Reese's.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's the best.
That's a good one.
It's the best shape of Reese's. Reese's is one of the best candies. That's a solid Halloween candy.
So Mike, I'm going to need you to come in as referee. Is pumpkin Reese's eliminating all the Reese's, or is it a subgenre?
It's going to eliminate all Reese's. But
okay.
Yeah. I think that's
fair.
fair.
But Kaitlyn, you chose wisely. That is the best version of Reese's.
Oh man, I was gonna go with Reese's as my number 1 pick, but I thought I could slide through. But Kaitlyn, you have a second pick.
Okay, I feel like this one is more controversial, which is the caramel apple lollipops. You know, those like ones that actually have the caramel or have the green apple lollipop and then caramel around them.
Oh, this is not even going to. This is going to be a what do you call it? I'm going to win M&Ms, right? It's my turn, right?
It's your turn,
M&Ms.
I have Kit Kats and M&Ms. This is not going to be. This is going to be an easy dub. Okay, who do you have, Emily?
I'm going to have to go with Snickers.
Oh,
ooh, that's a good one.
Snickers is the best candy bar. Yeah.
Oh man, that was mine. Is it my go, Mike?
No, Emily gets to go again.
Ooh.
Okay.
I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I think Butterfinger.
Ooh. I've lost control. Whose turn is it, Mike?
It's your turn now, Esau.
Okay. I'm going to go with Almond Joy.
Oh,
what? Esau, what are you doing?
That's what I was going to say.
I'm sorry. I was trying to refrain until the end for my commentary.
What are you talking about?
But you have the confidence of a white man and the picks of like horrible. These are terrible
What are you
picks.
Like, you are crazy. I'm willing to bet
love an
you
Almond Joy.
that I win hands down.
No.
Kit Kat, M&M, Almond Joy. That's like it's not even going to.
Terrible.
If I had Snickers, it wouldn't even be a question. Bag Snickers wouldn't even be a question.
Yeah.
But no, I got it. Okay then. So whose turn? Do I get a second one?
No, Kaitlyn gets two.
Okay.
So you're in the middle.
Okay.
You never get two picks.
Okay.
You're cut off.
Yeah.
I think my next one would be Sour Patch Kids.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Emily.
No.
Thank you.
Yes.
And one more, Kaitlyn. For this is round 4.
Gosh. This is hard. I feel like I'm running out of Halloween candy. But I know that people won't agree with me on this one.
Yes.
I love the dots, little boxes of dots.
Ooh.
Thank you, Emily.
Goodness.
Thank you.
It's not even. This is gonna be the last round because I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead right now. I feel like I got the dub. So I'm just gonna. We'll let Emily go and then I'll just get the victory and then that'll be the end of it.
Well, Esau, you got to pick one more. Then Emily gets to go.
Okay. I get to pick again.
Yeah, you're in the middle, Esau.
So, I'm sorry. I'm really bad at snake drafts. That's the reason I told you you need to do this part.
Apparently.
That's literally why we have a producer, so you can make sure I produce this stuff. So I want those dark chocolate Dove things, just like a chunk of dark chocolate. That's it.
Okay.
Okay. That's a
So
choice.
as you can see, I went all chocolate.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna win. I want to let you know that this is not a competition, that any of us gonna be with me. But go ahead.
All right,
Everybody
Emily,
else can
last
lose.
one.
Man, it's divided between 2 options for me. I'm gonna go with Swedish fish.
I do love Swedish
I don't even know what
fish.
that is.
I love Swedish fish.
They're like gummy candies. You gotta
Okay.
have some gummy candies in your Halloween.
Yeah.
Let me summarize then everyone's picks. So
Okay.
Emily ended up with Skittles, Snickers, Butterfinger, and Swedish Fish.
That's a really good
Okay.
one.
Esau, that's good. Esau,
Yeah.
you have Kit Kats, M&Ms, Almond Joys, and the dark chocolate Dove little chocolate bites.
Yeah.
And then Kaitlyn,
4
you have the
4 dubs.
if you say so. Kaitlyn, you have the pumpkin recess, the caramel apple suckers, the Sour Patch Kids, and dots. My commentary. Well, what were you gonna say, Esau?
Go ahead. Say what you want to say, Mike. I didn't actually ask you to give commentary. I
thought you did.
You could.
No.
I said you. Oh yes, you did. I did give you permission, but I
Esau.
don't like the way that your commentary is drifting. But I'm going to let you have your moment to jump on the podcast. What's your commentary?
Well,
just go ahead and be
now
wrong though.
I just feel like every episode now you're going to find a way to fire me. That has been the running theme of your show.
I'm sorry.
You know what? I'm prepared to be fired for this. Esau, you're last. It's just
Okay.
not a good.
Wow.
It's just not a good lineup.
Wow.
It's just, and I think the internet will agree with me. I mean,
actually
M&Ms
think
are
you're
maybe
right.
the most overrated. It's the worst
Yes.
version of M&Ms.
Yes.
You should have done
Yes.
peanut butter M&Ms.
Yes.
That
Yes.
would have been
Yes.
good.
Mhm. Mike's
Let's
right.
see. We got Kit Kats. Like, it's fine. But your first round pick,
Yeah.
you
It's
reached
the
for
best
that
selling.
one.
Oh, never.
Almond Joys,
Okay.
coconut is
Okay. Almond Joys are great.
oh.
So.
Yeah. Okay
They're
then.
great, but not for a
Wait.
draft.
I'm gonna say this though. Just wait for the vote. Wait for the vote.
Wait for the
Wait for the vote. Because you know what I actually do? You know what I actually do in these streets? I actually have been the person at a Halloween house and watch people dig through the bag. And when kids dig through, they're looking for Kit Kats, M&Ms, and Snicker bars. That's what the kids want. So I'm here for the people. So the people are going to be with me. Now, I know everybody associates Halloween with candy. It's the idea of dressing up and giving candy, but that's actually not where it comes from. So we actually brought a real scholar to come on, Emily, who we didn't bring her on for her candy takes. We actually brought her on to tell us, where does Halloween come from and how do we get to where we are from where we were?
Right. Well, to be clear, I am not a scholar on Halloween.
That's not your PhD in Halloween?
It's not my area of expertise. But I can say something about it because I have a personal interest in this and have been doing a little reading for another project. So Halloween, of course, comes from the phrase All Hallows Eve, which is a reference to the night before All Saints' Day.
For the people who are non-liturgical, what is All Saints' Day?
Oh, I guess that's a good point.
Yeah.
All Saints' Day is the day in the Christian calendar that was originally meant to commemorate the saints who have died, especially martyrs, but eventually expanded to include all saints. especially the ones that don't have special days throughout the rest of the year. So it was a time to commemorate the faithfully departed.
All the dead holy people, basically.
All the dead holy people.
Got it.
That was probably established, I think off the top of my head, in like the mid 800s officially.
Okay.
And then they added All Souls Day, which is for all the souls that have departed, not just the holy people, on November 2nd, about, I guess, like 500 years later or so.
So if you're dead and you're holy, you get celebrated on the 1st. If you just dead.
Well, the thought was by that point.
Yeah, I know.
You're in purgatory. So
you're in purgatory,
November 2nd was praying for the souls who've died and are in purgatory. Yeah.
But over time, it just remembered all of the faithful departed.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're back to we're back to the eve of that day.
Right.
The eve of All Saints Day.
The eve of All Saints Day, some speculation is that it is associated in part with a pagan holiday that is spelled Samhein. So it looks like it should be pronounced Samhain, but from what I've read, it should be pronounced Samhain. Mm-hmm. And that was a Celtic, perhaps Druid holiday associated with the change in seasons. And there's some speculation there might have been human sacrifice. That's highly contested. We don't know that for sure. But I think the association between the time of year that coincides with All Saints and All Souls and this Celtic celebration has caused kind of a mishmash over time between the traditions of one and the traditions of the other.
Yeah. So maybe I should ask you this, because we sometimes think of the calendar or the Christian, like the calendar that the Christians encountered as this blank slate. They're like, there was nothing going on any day. And the only days that can be properly Christians are the ones that Christians kind of came into that were empty. It seems that sometimes we assume that if it was initially had a negative connotation, the church cannot sanctify it.
Sure.
Is that a fair read of what sometimes the fear of Hallows Eve is?
Sure. Yeah. I think there's this sense that it's not a like thoroughly Christian holiday. It's too syncretistic is the word that gets used a lot, this combination of sacred and secular stuff. And so we're worried that it's not pure enough for Christians to observe. But the problem with that is that our Christian practices have been a mishmash of things all through the centuries of the church. There's not a pure just about anything in many of our practices.
But November the 1st was a distinctive, like the idea of November the 1st is a distinctively Christian holiday.
That's true.
And like most major Christian holidays have an eve attached to them. What are the chances the church put All Saints Day on November 1st so that they can have the eve on the 31st and then combat this kind of quasi-pagan idea? It feels like an overly convoluted thing. Why not just have All Saints Day on the pagan day on the 31st if that was the goal?
Yeah, I think it's highly unlikely. That has been the speculation, but it's highly unlikely when you look at the history. It's more likely that it was something. I mean, All Saints Day actually used to be in April. And so it's more likely that they moved it because of things like at harvest time, there's more food to feed people who were going on pilgrimage. Like it was probably very practical and like ordinary in terms of their reasoning for moving it. If it happened to coincide with a holiday that they were happy to overtake, I think that was a side benefit. I don't think that was the main reason.
So do you think it's fair to say that sometimes we have an overly conspiratorial understanding of early Christianity where the church is like this really all-powerful machine that's looking at calendars and arranging things and fighting pagans, like in the way that we now think about it on these, and I'm thinking mostly in particular of the YouTube kind of exposés of Halloween.
Yeah, it's just not that simple. It's just not. I mean, what really happened is far more entertaining and complicated than this kind of behind the scenes conspiracy theory thing. Yeah.
Now, Kaitlyn, did you come up in a context where your church was like, let's go Halloween, let's trunk or treat? Like, what kind of context did you come from as it relates to this particular holiday?
My parents were very anti-Halloween. We went to some like harvest festival kind of quasi-Halloween type things at church, but my mom was a missionary kid and grew up in some countries where witchcraft was a real concern and that Christians had to theologically respond to. So they were both pretty anti-Halloween. We didn't go trick-or-treating. We didn't like celebrate Halloween in any way. But there was always a sense that like there could be a Christian alternative where you dressed up and there was candy, but it wasn't Halloween. It was harvest festival.
Now, Emily, forgive me. I know you're not necessarily a Halloween historian, but I'm going to treat you like you're one. Did the Christians dress up like in imitation of the saints, or was the dressing up completely a Halloween invention? So I'm asking, like, maybe you can answer that question for us.
Yeah. So the quick answer is no, it wasn't dressing up as the saints. So again, some of this is sketchy. We don't know for sure. But best we can tell, the tradition of dressing up is associated with two practices that come to be blended together as the holidays get celebrated around the same time. And so one is called souling. And this is when like peasants and poor folks would travel around, knock on doors, request treats or bread or beer or whatever in exchange for, I know.
Just a beer? Yeah. Can I have a cold one?
Praying for the dead. So they would exchange that for their prayers on behalf of those in purgatory. And in that instance, they were just, traveling in their cloaks or whatever, and then offering prayers and receiving treats as compensation. But then there was also another tradition of dressing up as like spiritual beings. And this is probably more connected to the old Celtic holiday, where they're dressing up like spiritual beings, because this is a time in which supposedly the realm between the living and the dead has gotten very thin. And so the thought was you can dress up in these ways and scare away or fool those spirits that are trying to run amok during that time period. And so the thought is both of those practices got kind of linked
together
to be what we experience today.
So I would ask you this question. You have kids, Emily. I have kids. Kaitlyn, you don't have many kids.
No.
But it's okay. You can give me your take anyway. So this is not a parents only take, Kaitlyn. So for me, I have this idea that there are certain things. I guess my own philosophy as a parent is I am fine with my kids dressing up for Halloween, but I do actually care about what they put on. That's actually something I care about. Like, I actually don't think that it's a good idea for them to dress up like demons or whatever. But I don't think that the idea of kids wearing costumes is inherently something that is going to turn them into the occult.
Right.
So, are you a no kids dress up person? Or are you you can only dress up like, Saint Macarius or something? Like, where do you fall on the dress up thing? And maybe Kaitlyn, I don't know if it doesn't really matter. Do you dress up? Maybe I can ask you. I'm too old and I don't dress up anymore. But do you dress up, Kaitlyn? And if you decide to have kids, would you be a pro or anti costume person at this point?
Well, I'll let Emily answer first.
Kaitlyn?
I want to know what she's.
Okay, Emily, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was ready for Kaitlyn's answer.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm a little more loose than you are, Esau. I'm not as concerned about what they dress up as. Maybe it's because my kids have never suggested something really outrageous.
Yeah.
They've typically chosen stuff that is either funny or out of a fantasy book that they're enjoying or something like that. I'm not even sure that it really concerns me if they're dressing up as devils, especially if part of the tradition is actually poking fun at powers that have been disarmed by Christ. And so dress up as them because their time is short and their reign is over. So make fun of them if you want to.
So wait a minute. You as you often do when I talk to you, Emily, you slide in a lot of theology in passing. So are you saying that some Christians began to do that? And is that where some of that came from? Mm-hmm. Or are you just saying that's how you could help children understand that?
So I'm not sure that most Christians think about it in that way. So just like your average Christian through the years, I don't think they were saying to themselves, oh, let's dress up as demons and make fun of those who've been defeated by Christ. But I think it's a way that we can make meaning out of a practice that's already taking place, that these are things that we can have fun with because we're not afraid of them anymore, and that it's Christ who's allowed us to not be afraid.
Do you think that maybe I was thinking about some of maybe this is completely off target, the gargoyles and all of those things that I see, and some of the Christian artwork that does feel, from our perspective, a little macabre. And so was that influencing some of the kind of Christian artwork that has elements of the demonic in them? And I don't know if demonic is the right word. And that's what I thought you might have been referring to.
Well, so that can be part of it as well. So alongside of what we've been talking about with the Celtic holiday and then All Saints and All Souls, you have to remember that the Middle Ages is when a lot of our traditions emerged. And there were two big, I mean, there's more, but there were two especially big influences on these practices. One would be the plague, experiences of the Black Death. And out of that experience came things like the dance macabre and other ways of dark humor, making fun of, and yet having to face the realities of death and how close it was at hand. And then at the same time, there were also witch trials, thousands and thousands of them. I mean, the estimates used to be really high. Now it's probably more like 100 to 200,000 witch trials. About half of those probably resulted in executions, which is a lot. To be clear, it's still awful. But both of those experiences have had influence on this holiday as well. And so I think that's why you see this diversity of costumes, and it's pulling from all these different threads.
So, Kaitlyn, are you a costume person?
I do love dressing up for Halloween. And this year I will dress up and go trick-or-treating with a bunch of kids from my church, which I love. As a side note, Halloween is one of my favorite holidays because I love kids. And I love that not only the kids at my church, we get to spend time together, but the kids in my neighborhood. I mean, I live in a pretty low income neighborhood and have a lot of neighbors that there's language barriers, especially with the adults, a lot of immigrant families. And the first kind of like movement towards relationship I have had with any of them because of that language barrier was the first Halloween that I was here. I gave candy to their kids, and that starts a relationship. So I love dressing up in part because I love dressing up as something that the kids might recognize or like have some interest in. So this year I'm dressing up as Taylor Swift because I am trick-or-treating with some kids that really do love Taylor Swift. So I love dressing up and I love kids dressing up. I think if I had my own kids, I might, like you, Esau, have some discomfort with certain costumes, even though I fully agree with Emily's description of kind of mocking evil. It's actually something that I think is true of Halloween in general, and one of the reasons I really like scary movies and haunted houses as well. But
we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm glad. But I could imagine as a parent being like, "Oh, there are some kind of bloody or scary things that I might have some qualms about."
Yeah. So to be honest, I mean, to be clear, I don't think that my kids have ever actually suggested something. But I could imagine saying, that ain't it in my house.
Yeah.
I will say, maybe I can say, growing up, I didn't have any costumes because we were broke. And I remember the one thing that I had, I think I was a zombie. And that's because it was easy to be a zombie. You just had to like rip your clothes up and like walk funny. But the other thing about my neighborhood is there was like 2 Halloweens. Like the first Halloween was for like the young people, and you had to you could go around and get your candy, and there was like a time limit, and you had to judge how far. I don't think I ever told this publicly. You had to judge how far you can push it into the dark, because once the dark hit, the older kids came out, and they didn't actually like going door to door, so they would just take kids' candy. And so they would like if a teenager, it was a rough part of town. So if a teenager caught you when you was like a middle school, elementary school, they would just snatch your bag. And so you had to judge, okay, how long have I been out? What time are they going to come out? And if you misjudge it, then you lost your candy. Or if you really knew the game, what you would do is you would get all of your stuff early, drop that bag off. And if you really want to push it, you can have like a second bag that you're running from like 7:30 to 8 o'clock, because that's when the second round of candy came. And so, and the other thing is, I wasn't the skinniest person in my neighborhood. And so when the guys would come, I never forget this one time, the guys would come in, they were chasing us to get our candy. And one friend cut to the left and the other kid cut to the right, and I kept running straight. And I was the slowest one. And they was like, oh, you know you're gonna get your candy, right? And I'm just running down the street hoping to make it home. But reader or listener, I did not make it home that night.
Aww.
And I lost all of my Halloween candy.
No.
So maybe that's the reason why I'm a little bit traumatized. The real reason actually I invited Kaitlyn to come onto the podcast, because she's going to try to convince me, because Esau does. I might drift more towards fundamentalism when it comes to some of this Halloween stuff, because I cannot tell you the last time I, of my own volition, watched a scary movie. And like all of this Halloween stuff, all of these like scary movies, these folks coming to get me, or like on the screen, I don't watch them. But Kaitlyn told me that she's going to try to convince me that I can watch a scary movie and a demon ain't gonna come and get me. Now, let's be clear. Let's be clear. We all recognize that there's certain things that children and that even adults probably isn't the most healthy thing to watch.
Yes.
So we're not talking about every kind of extreme.
Yes.
We're just talking about, in general, the good of a frightening movie. Yeah. And so I'm giving you like that caveat, Kaitlyn, so people don't come for you in your mentions.
Yep.
We're not. Kaitlyn's not telling you to go play with the Ouija board.
Nope. No. Absolutely not.
Kaitlyn has boundaries.
Yep.
But I just don't watch any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So Kaitlyn, why should I consider a scary movie?
I love this so much because I love scary movies, and I in only the last few years have interrogated why. I do think on some level I'm just a little bit of an adrenaline junkie and I enjoy being scared. So I'm being honest, that is definitely part of it.
Do you ride roller coasters?
I love roller coasters. I want to jump out of an airplane.
Nope, don't do any of that.
So
okay.
that is one feature of it for sure. But the other feature of it that I have reflected on over the past few years is two things. One is what Emily already said of, I think there is this very Christian posture of mocking evil and saying a lot of these films, some of them are glorying in the evil. And that's where I might be halfway into a movie and go, this isn't for me. This is actually enjoying what's evil in this. But there are many that are mocking it or unmasking it. And I think that's a really Christian thing. But the first thing that I really realized as I was watching some of them was that this was one of the few genres of art that people consume in a modern world that acknowledges this impulse that I think most of us have to believe that there is great evil in the world and that it's not just about individual human acts, that there are forces at work in the world, there are systemic issues that are evil. And people have that intuition, I think, but so much of our modern world squashes that and says, no, that's not, you're not actually perceiving something supernatural. You're not actually perceiving deep evil. And horror movies take that intuition, blow it up quite colorfully, and I think give people an opportunity to acknowledge this is real in the world, and I have
Kaitlyn,
to face it.
That's too good
and
of an argument. Kaitlyn, stop it. That's too good of an argument. I don't want to hear that. I wanted you to tell me it's okay to watch people getting stabbed. I don't want to hear this philosophical.
No. Well,
that's actually good. Yeah, good. That's actually good. That's actually a good point. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was like, that's just too good, Kaitlyn. I wanted to mock you. So the tricky part is, and I don't want to be unfair to you, because anytime you ask someone for an example, they're going to interrogate the example and pull it apart.
Yeah.
But if you want to say I don't want to give an example for that reason, I will give you an excuse to punt. But can you talk about a show or a movie that kind of interrogates evil and kind of brings it out in a way like that? Maybe the closest one I could think of is Get Out, a good example of this. That's a scary movie that I have saw.
Yeah, I love Jordan Peele movies. Yeah. I mean, all of the horror ones that he's done, the most recent one, I believe, Nope, very similar. Yeah. It's really pulling out a larger dynamic that is true. And that one is interesting. I mean, Get Out dealing with issues of race. Nope is really dealing with issues of creation and our relationship to creatures. And it really does, in a frightening way, pull out this real impulse towards mistreatment that humans have towards non-human creatures. So though I think those are great examples. The examples that I often go to are actually some limited series on Netflix that there are a bunch of them that are all made by Mike Flanagan. One of them,
I'm going to write this down.
Good.
Go ahead.
One that's has the most explicit religious themes that a lot of people talked about, I think a year or two ago, is called Midnight Mass. And it's I mean, a lot of horror deals with religious themes because, again, like I said, it's dealing with this supernatural element and trying to get at this impulse we have that there's more going on. So Midnight Mass is really great. But a couple other ones that he's done that I think give more specific examples of how you can actually learn something about how evil works. One is called The Fall of the House of Usher. That's about this family that is wealthy because of the pharmaceutical industry, the pharmaceutical company that they have all profited from. And each member of the family, it's illustrated through this curse that every member of the family has. But in reality, it's basically saying, if you create something that gives you a lot of wealth but causes a lot of people harm, there will be effects on you. You will eventually face those effects of that evil. So it dramatizes this reality that we all know, that certain companies are profiting off of the misery of other people. But it feeds this, I think, deeply Christian desire to see consequences, to see judgment, to see that people don't just get away with evil forever. And some of the other shows that he's done dramatize family dynamics, the way that trauma impacts people over time, but it does it by blowing it up and showing that there's spiritual, there's supernatural elements to all these things that we might just say, oh, that's psychological, or that's material, that's economic. And these give us an opportunity to say there's more going on than just those things.
Okay, now that was really good, Kaitlyn, and I want to take that seriously, but I also want to ask Emily a ridiculous question. So, so I looked it up because I figured Kaitlyn was going to give me some kind of good answer that I couldn't refute, and she actually did, and that was actually better than I thought. I thought I was going to be able to go full Bible on you. So as usual, I got dunked on by Kaitlyn. But I went and looked because I figured Kaitlyn would have the most sophisticated movies out there. But I went and looked at the top 5 grossing horror movies of 2024. And I'm going to ask you the name of the movie. I'm going to tell you the name of the movie. And I want you to tell me the plot. Okay? So the number 3 grossing movie. And Mike has the plots ready for you. So you got to guess what you think the plot is. And then Mike's going to tell you the plot. I'm going to give you the reasonable one, Emily. Kaitlyn, since you had such a good answer, you're going to get the most ridiculous one of all of these. So the number 3 grossing movie of 2024, the horror movie, was called Long Legs. Emily McGowin.
But wait, this is a good one.
Okay, what is Long Legs? That's what I said. I gave her. You're not getting Long Legs, Kaitlyn.
So
you're getting something else.
I don't watch horror movies either. I will defend the genre.
Okay.
I can't handle them, so I don't know anything about horror movies.
What is Long Legs about, though?
You're not going to guess it.
It's about a really tall, skinny, creepy dude who hunts people while they sleep.
Okay, Mike, what is Long Legs about?
FBI agent.
Kaitlyn knows about it. Did you see it, Kaitlyn?
That's right.
Yeah. It is sort of about like a tall creature that kills people, but it's about this FBI agent who's investigating a serial killer, and you slowly, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but like you slowly over time realize that she has a kind of psychological or spiritual connection to this being that is murdering people, or at least that there's a being that's kind of causing other people to murder other people.
Yeah. So Kaitlyn, that was decent. That was good. I want you to tell us the plot of Terrifier Part 3.
This is my thing. This is the caveat I wanted to give too, was like, there are some genres of horror movies that I have zero interest in. One is like full on slasher. Like if the point is just like people get murdered, I'm not into that. Or there's like a genre of like just gross, like body kind of like just disgusting. Not really into that. I have no idea what did you say? Terrifier?
I think is that correct, Mike? It's called
Terrifier.
Not only has there been one Terrifier, there's been three Terrifiers.
I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that it's about a clown that murders people.
Really?
I don't know.
You might have
right.
Mike. Kaitlyn, what is this about?
After surviving Art the Clown's Halloween massacre, Sienna and her brother struggle to rebuild their shattered lives. As the holiday season approaches, they try to embrace the Christmas spirit and leave the horrors of the past behind. However, just when they think they're safe, Art returns, determined to turn their holiday cheer into a nightmare.
A killer clown ruins Christmas. That's the reason why I don't watch scary movies, Kaitlyn. I'm glad.
Well, don't watch that one. I would say don't watch that one.
Hold on. Yeah, let me make sure the listener understands this. We are not telling you to don't go watch Terrifier, please.
Yes. Yep, don't do it.
What we're trying to show is that there are, in any kind of genre, things that ask interesting questions. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we actually try to do on this podcast is actually talk about what culture reveals about God and human search for meaning. And so I think that everything in culture is telling us something, right? Yeah. Even something like the Terrifier, gets to something about human brokenness. Why are we entertained by people suffering? And why in particular is it entertaining the idea that something as sacred as Christmas or a holiday and family is ruined by murder and death? There's a certain kind of nihilism that's revealed in that. And so our focus on something like Terrifier does reveal something about like the human tendency to want to see other people suffer, rooted in our own brokenness and our own sinfulness. And I don't think we need to consume the Terrifier in order to like recognize what it might mean for society. But I do think that, I mean, I want to grant, I don't want to say, I want to grant Kaitlyn's point that there is some films or some movies that might explore this concept of evil in a way that the rest of that our culture does. I never really thought about it that way. That you're right, that sometimes a horror movie are one of the few places where the supernatural and real evil besides personal decision are unveiled. Now I want to ask you maybe one last question that maybe doesn't wrap it up in a neat little bow. So maybe I got to do a follow-up to the follow-up. But this is something else I want to know. Part of the reason that I am not into horror movies is because God bless my mom. She did a lot of great stuff. So I don't think Mama's listening to the podcast anyway. But Mama, I love you. But she didn't keep a good watch on my TV consumption when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And she let me watch stuff that I probably had no business watching when I was younger. And there was like one show that just terrified me, and I watched too many of them, or one series. It was called The Nightmare on Elm Street. Mm-hmm. And the idea that if you fell asleep, Freddy Krueger was going to come and kill you. The amount of hours I lost sleep, I think I saw that in like elementary school. It was something wild, or whenever it came out. And like HBO was on, I clicked on it, and next thing you know, Freddy Krueger chased people around the neighborhood. So I'm asking you, was there a horror movie or a character who scared you as a kid? There's one more that I can tell you about, but maybe we'll get to that one later. But it was Freddy Krueger who scared me. Did anybody terrify you, Emily?
Oh, me?
Yeah, was there a movie or a character who you were afraid of as a kid?
The one that stands out to me that still freaks me out to this day is actually Jaws.
Jaws?
It wasn't like a supernatural thing. It was Jaws. I saw that film when I was too young, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8. And that, I still think about that. I'm still afraid of things in the deep water today.
Jaws. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Kaitlyn.
This is funny because it's not really a horror movie either. And in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, part of what I think is really important about this is recognizing both like age, to your point, like you should be of an age where you can, but I am way less freaked out by supernatural stuff because I believe in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ and the defeat of the powers and principalities on the cross. I get more freaked out by like slasher stuff because I'm like, it's not impossible that someone could break into my house and murder me, but I do believe at this point it's impossible for a demon to inhabit me because I have Jesus and the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. But as a kid, the thing that really freaked me out was I think it's the second Spy Kids movie. They have these like they have these thumb people. They're like finger people that walk around and they're like full on finger. We stopped the movie halfway through when I was a kid because I was crying. I was like, we cannot watch this. This is so freaky.
The thumb people.
Yeah,
I would tell you the other one that I also watched when I was a kid, and I used to have nightmares about this. We were, like I said, we had HBO. How we afford HBO in my house, I don't know. But in my grandma's house, we just had basic cable, and so we would spend a lot of summers in my grandma's house, and we would just have to watch whatever was on TV. Maybe it was basic cable. Maybe you had cable, but you didn't have any of the good shows. And so I found myself watching a lot of shows from like the 70s or the 80s. And it was the Incredible Hulk with like Lou Ferrigno. I think that's the guy's name. And it was a good show because he would like use the Hulk to like do good, right? He'd turn into a monster, but the monster would beat the bad guys. But I used to have this nightmare that the Hulk or whoever the guy was, David Bannister, lived in my neighborhood, and we would play basketball with him. And things would be going great. Me and us are playing, and then somebody would foul the Hulk every time. Like Hulk would drive to the court, and someone would like foul him, or someone would like start a fight with the Hulk, and he would be like, "Please don't start a fight with me." And people didn't listen. And then he's like, "Okay, I'm about to turn into a Hulk." And we had a little bit of time to once again run. And the Hulk used to chase me around my neighborhood, not because I was a bad guy, but because somebody else had turned him into the Hulk. And so I was afraid of that green guy he was. Maybe this shows you that I was in a neighborhood where there's always someone trying to get me. That might be like there might be some psychological analysis related to all of that. So maybe it's the neighborhood, not the scary movies. but I do think that if any of this is kind of a decent reflection on the scary the stuff the conversation we just had, I do think that it is true that there are Christians who have different opinions on the usefulness of Halloween. And I think that there are ways in which it can be healthy. And I think there's ways in which it could be, this is my own take, there are ways in which it can be dangerous. But I also think, ways it can be not as helpful. Mm-hmm. And I do think that all of us have said we've been exposed to things, whether it's Jaws, The Incredible Hulk, and Freddy Krueger, or that were difficult for us as children. Mm-hmm. And that part of the responsibility of the sermon that I think might be related or relevant to parents is asking themselves, are the things that our children or even we consume, are they good and healthy for us spiritually? And I think that's at least a fair question to ask around Halloween. Are we consuming things that are spiritually healthy for us and spiritually damaging? And part of that might be related to your background, your own sensitivity, or your own understanding of what's going on. Is that a fair summary, or would there be something else that you might want to add as we think about coming into Halloween? We'll go with Kaitlyn, and then we'll go with Emily. And we might let Mike back on if he's had a chance to rethink his chocolate takes, his candy takes. So we'll go with Kaitlyn first.
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. And I said this to Sky recently when we were talking about haunted houses, that I think this similar standard applies to scary movies or to different Halloween practices, is to say, it's a really relevant question to say, is this glorifying evil, or is it mocking evil, or is it facing evil? Like, I think something else about horror movies that I love is it helps us process fears, to think about they're scary because they're tapping into some universal human fears. If we're watching them, or we're going to a haunted house, or we're participating in Halloween because it's mocking evil or because it's facing evil, that's a very different thing. And it still might not be something that you're capable of doing right now, or your children are old enough to do. Absolutely. But then I think we have to have this like thing that goes off in our heads where it moves to glorying in evil, because that's something I think is off the table for Christians.
Kayla, every time I try to listen, I try to agree with you. You listen, me and haunted houses, I listen to all of your sophisticated stuff. I'm not going to the haunted house.
You don't have to, Esau. I'll do it. I'll do it.
I'm saying, like, I was trying to let you have your moment, but you tossed in the haunted houses. Next year, next Halloween, we're going to have an entirely different conversation. And Emily, I know there's a haunted house story that I won't ask you to talk about, but do you have any other final thoughts about Halloween?
Well, I think the thing that hasn't been said yet that I think is worth pointing out is that is unlike Easter and Christmas, it is a holiday that, yes, has been secularized in many ways like them, but is also still very communal. It's not privately home focused in the same way that Easter and Christmas often are, where it's seen as like family time. Yeah. Like Halloween is puzzling to me and interesting to me precisely because it is still communal. We don't normally interact with our neighbors anymore. Most of us get in our cars, press the garage door opener, we back out, close the garage door, and then head out to our workday and return the same way we came. We don't ever have to talk to our neighbors. But in Halloween, whether you're giving out candy from your home or you're walking kids around the neighborhood, you're interacting with folks around you in ways that you don't get to. Now, there's in everyday life, there's certainly safety precautions about, there's more concerns about like cars and children than candy and children in reality. So we have to be careful about that stuff. But I think that it's still steadfastly communal. And I think that's interesting given how individualistic our society is. And I think there's evidence from all the rituals we still have around Halloween that there's still room for religion. People are still into religious things, even if they don't quite know why or how to name and describe what they're sensing and feeling.
Mike, have you had a chance to reflect on your candy takes, or do you want to say anything about Halloween to join in at the end? See, unlike the other podcast, I let you on the podcast, Mike. You should just keep that in
mind. It's true. Although usually you let me on to ridicule me or fire me. So, okay. Actually, what I wanted to bring up, Esau, you mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street was your least favorite scary movie. Do you realize you live like 2 miles from the Elm Street that movie is based on.
Are you serious?
It's true.
So Yes, and that Wes Craven, the writer of that movie, is a Wheaton College alum.
Oh my goodness!
Well, I don't think he graduated, but
that's true. I do think he dropped out. But
I'm about to sprinkle holy water over this whole space. Are you serious?
I'm
serious. Freddy Krueger lives within 2 miles of me.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true.
I'm moving. I'm like leaving.
Good luck sleeping tonight.
Why did you tell me that? This is the reason why we don't get along. I'm like, this is exactly how Nightmare on Elm Street Part 15 starts off. Like, this guy's on the podcast. I used to be scared of Freddy Krueger. Did you know Freddy Krueger lives around the corner from you? The next thing you know, I go to sleep and he's chasing me. This is the worst end of a podcast I've ever heard. That's not true. Is that true?
It's true.
Yeah.
If you drive down Naperville Road,
I'm not driving to the source of all evil that traumatized my childhood.
I drive by Elm Street every day, Esau. It's not going to hurt you. I promise.
My goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm going to. I don't know what to do now. I don't know how to process this in real time on the podcast. I'll just say the devil is a liar. Can I end the podcast?
There you go. Amen.
The devil is a liar, and Christ has defeated all enemies, including Freddy Krueger. And thank you for listening to the Esau Macaulay podcast. We're done. The Esau Macaulay podcast is a production of Holy Post Media, produced by Mike Stay Low, Stray Low. If you know, now you know. Edited by Seth Gorbett, like a Corvette. Music by Rob Knorr. Make sure to follow the show wherever you get your podcast and leave a review so more people can find it. See you next time. I'm out.
I'm penning these letters with prayers they can aid your endeavors. It's clever benevolence, tasted it, wrestle with, still wrestling. Touch my side and it crushed my pride and told me I'm blessed within. Receive a Christian platitude with gratitude, but in the saddest news I live in doesn't add up to the Beatitudes. Catch me in the catacombs, chiefing like they Pat Mahomes, catching bullets, tackle foes, running plays, defending zones. Field got them doing football numbers, only average grown. He was acting grown.